Hey, welcome to the video. My name's Dychronic, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Xur, his inventory, his random rolls for January 14th, 2022. You can find the Xur in his regular spot on the EDZ, just over to the Winding Cove, and right on top of this cliffside, or should I say the precipice, you can find the Xur. This is a high overview in case this is all you cared about. First up, we have the weapon today, which is the Sweet Business. Weapon that actually came out with the base game and is actually a lot of fun. First of all, if you've never heard of it, sustained fire actually boosts the range and rate of fire. So you go from 360 up to like 1200, 900, and it's literally a minigun in primary ammo form. In PvE, technically, it's not really that high of DPS output. I think hand cannons often have higher DPS, keep that in mind. But when it comes to just very quick output with the 150 magazine, it's just really fun, and it's definitely a very tight weapon. On top of that, large magazine, more accuracy when firing from the hip, and whenever you pick up these special heavy ammo bricks, you immediately reload the weapon, which is basically unlimited power. And I forget what the catalyst does, but overall, not an amazing weapon past mid-level legend or maybe a master, but it is a fun weapon. Following that, for the Hunter exotic, we have the Guizin Vest. Actually used to be really strong back when Spectral Blades was not 5 nerfs deep. Each Spectral Blade kill you make before going into stealth will restore more of your super energy. So you go for some light attacks, you get a kill, then you do a heavy attack, you go invisible. When you're invisible, you obviously take less damage, and then you get a little super energy back. The problem is it really only changes the number of kills you get per match by 1. It doesn't help you when you don't have a super. So beyond the fact that Spectral got nerfed like 5 times, it's not very effective. When it comes to the roll, you'd like to see a lot of intellect and recovery, and that's exactly what it has. With hunters, you'd like to see a bit more mobility, and it's okay mobility. Overall, high total stats, high recovery, high intellect. This is an excellent roll for an exotic that does need some work. Following that, for the Titan exotic, we have the Armamentarium. All this thing does is give you an additional grenade charge. And pretty much every single exotic that gives you an additional charge of anything, you have to keep in mind overflow charging. Because as soon as you get your grenade, you are not using it. You're waiting for an opportunity. And while that grenade is charged, the second grenade is now charging. So you end up getting and using a lot more grenades than you would normal. So don't underestimate this kind of exotic. For this exotic, you'd like to see a lot of discipline, but obviously your build can be built differently, and you can actually compensate with other pieces. The fact this is a high total stats of 67 and it has a high strength is just, it's a lot of goodness. By the way, does anybody see this like horse head right here? It's like the horse's face is facing towards us, a little nose here, little ears here. Has that always been there? And finally, for the Warlock exotic, we have the Vesper of Radius, which actually has a pretty dope ornament, and I would personally recommend it. It's an exotic that came out with essentially the base game, and is a decent Rift exotic, although there are better options. Things like Lunafaction boots, or transverse... not transversive steps, Phoenix Protocol. There are other Rift, the Stag, you know, there are better Rift exotics, but this one comes up right behind them, probably like top 5 for Rift exotics. If you've never heard of it, you get an arc shockwave when you cast it, which can combine with the stasis one, and the Rift charges much faster when you're surrounded. And in PvE, it takes like 5 to 10 seconds to charge a full Rift if you're surrounded the whole time. In my opinion, there are not a ton of applications for this. Considering Attunement of Grace, you can get your rifts pretty much infinitely anyways with your teammates. There's not a huge application for this, but it is a thing that you can use. And when it comes to the roll, this is an excellent roll. Very high recovery, high discipline, not high mobility, 64, which is above average. This is a very good roll for an exotic that, you know, it's okay. Following that, let's take a look at the legendary weapons. John 7 rifle, which is a pretty damn good 390 energy pulse rifle. Although not a great roll, I would recommend you keep in mind firmly planted is actually a pretty good perk people overlook. Following that, the 7 Seraph carbine officer, 180 RPM, very low magazine, and you can definitely do better. This is Vorpal, it has time payload, and again, I don't know why the magazine's so small. Following that, the False Promises. Definitely a lot better rolls here. There's damage perks, there's range stuff. You could definitely do a lot better. Timeless Vertex has, again, firmly planted, don't sleep on it. Snapshot, which is not bad, has some range stuff. Accelerated Liquid, not a bad roll actually, but I think you can do better than Snapshot. Following that, the Secrecy 12. Ooh, lead from gold with Trench Barrel. Does not have Assault Mag, has handling and full choke though. This is very close to being like the second best roll you can get. I personally still like auto-loading in this column, and I think it can do Vorpal as well, which is a bit more preferred these days, but this is an excellent roll for a pretty damn good weapon. Following that, we have the 7 Seraph Saw, which is actually a Warmind weapon with Warmind cell stuff. Has auto-loading, but the rest of it's kind of par, subpar. And finally, we have the Swarm of the Raven, which has auto-loading, but it's a 150 grenade launcher. But it has auto-loading, but it's a 150 grenade launcher. And of course, the legendary armors. 59, not good distribution. 60, not good distribution. 58, not good distribution. And 63, high resilience. If you need high resilience, 63 is okay, but it's not really high recovery, and I really like recovery. So the boots are the only thing to keep in mind if you are on a Warlock. And of course, keep in mind you should pick up an exotic engram. If you haven't, you get to pick one up every single week for like 100 legendary shards, and it gives you an exotic you've never seen before and a high stat roll. I've already picked mine up because I had an issue with my recording, but it came out as Storm Dancer's Brace, so no big loss. You didn't miss much. But it is a gamble. Sometimes you get stuff you want, sometimes you don't. And hey, if you haven't seen it already, I do live stream right after all of these videos, as well as all times on screen right now. Oftentimes doing open lobbies for raids, for triumph grinding, for seasonal stuff, and all that whatnot. And sometimes we have some fun. And of course, as always, a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Big thank you to Mom and Dad, Christian Thompson, Dr. Strange, KLAM, Anissa Bachmanus, Raymond Schoeninger, Panther, Casey Reagan for their support on Patreon. And that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name is Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Die, scumbag!